He stood outside the grand hotel that bore his name, rain dripping from the brim of his worn cap, watching the guards turn him away. "Sir, this entrance is for guests only," one barked. Behind them, laughter and champagne echoed from a world he built but could no longer touch. The billionaire smiled faintly. He could have spoken a single word, revealed the truth, dropped his name, and every knee in that lobby would have bent. But instead, he whispered, "Not today," and walked away. Because sometimes silence is the loudest way to speak. Welcome to today's emotional story, one that will remind you how pride can blind us and how grace can change everything. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to leave a like if you're ready for a story that hits deep. The morning light poured over the skyline like liquid gold, glinting off the glass towers that bore his family's name. But down on the street, Aaron Vale looked nothing like the man behind those empires. Dressed in a plain grey jacket and scuffed shoes, he blended into the crowd with the practiced ease of someone who had long grown tired of being seen for his wealth instead of his worth. His car, an old sedan he refused to replace, waited quietly at the curb. To the world, he was invisible. And to Aaron, that invisibility was a kind of peace. He'd built an empire not for status, but to keep a promise to the woman he loved, his late wife, Evelyn. Her dream was to create spaces that felt like home for everyone, not just the privileged few. But after her passing, those dreams had turned into corporate strategies, profit reports, and glossy facades managed by people like Vincent Harrow, his brother-in-law. Vincent was the face of Vale Group's hospitality division, a CEO polished to perfection. Everything about him gleamed, his smile, his suits, his words. Yet beneath that polish lay a man desperate to prove himself worthy of the legacy he never built. At the top of his checklist today, a gala for investors at the Meridian, Vale Group's crown jewel. He'd spent weeks ensuring the guest list reflected elite standards. No uninvited guests. No surprises. Aaron knew Vincent well enough to expect resistance, but he hadn't expected humiliation. He arrived at the Meridian unannounced, hoping to observe without fanfare. He wanted to see whether Evelyn's spirit still lingered in the marble she once helped design. The revolving glass doors gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the power and pride inside. But as Aaron approached, two security guards stepped in front of him. "Sir, may we help you?" one asked, tone stiff. "I'm here for the event," Aaron said simply. The guard looked him up and down. "For the investor gala?" He nodded. The man's smirk was almost apologetic. "I think you might be lost, sir. This entrance is for VIPs only." Aaron's brows drew together. "I'm family," he said, gently. "Family of who?" Before Aaron could answer, Vincent's voice cut through the lobby air like a knife. "What's going on here?" He walked over, flanked by assistants, his eyes sharp beneath the glow of chandeliers. For a moment, Vincent didn't recognize him, didn't want to. Aaron's cap, the faint stubble, the modest attire, it didn't fit the image Vincent had built of what a Vale should look like. "Vincent," Aaron greeted softly. Vincent blinked, realization dawning, then immediately masked by irritation. "Aaron," he said, lowering his voice. "What are you doing here like this? You can't just show up. There's a dress code, and we have media present." Aaron's expression didn't change. "I came to see how things were going." "You should have called," Vincent replied curtly. "You can't just walk in. People might misunderstand." Aaron looked around the marble hall filled with gold trim and artificial smiles. "Maybe that's the problem," he said quietly. Vincent sighed, clearly impatient. "Aaron, please. I don't have time for this." He gestured vaguely at Aaron's clothes. "We'll talk later." The guards waited for a signal. Vincent gave it. And just like that, the billionaire who built the foundation under those gleaming tiles was escorted back toward the door. Aaron didn't argue. He only looked up once, at the massive chandelier Evelyn had chosen years ago, and whispered, "You wouldn't recognize this place anymore." Outside, the rain began to fall, soft but relentless. He stood beneath it, letting it soak through his jacket as the doorman turned the lock behind him. Above him, the neon sign of the Meridian flickered in the wet grey light. It was his name, his company, his dream, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was what it had become. Behind those shining windows, Vincent toasted to investors, smiling wide as cameras flashed. Inside, he was king. Outside, Aaron walked away with quiet dignity, unseen but unbroken. He could have revealed everything, ended the farce with a word. But he didn't. Because true power, he believed, wasn't in reminding the world who you are. It was in knowing who you are when the world forgets. And yet, as he turned the corner, something inside him shifted. A seed of resolve. Not anger, just a whisper of truth rising in him. Maybe I've stayed invisible too long. Have you ever been judged by how you looked, not who you were? Tell me in the comments what you would have done in Aaron's place, and don't forget to hit that like button if this story already has you hooked. The night settled over the city like a silk curtain, soft and deceptive. The Meridian's ballroom glowed with gold light, alive with laughter, champagne, and music that hummed against marble. Aaron stood across the street, watching the building he once dreamed would stand for equality now pulsing with arrogance. He wasn't angry, just quietly heartbroken. He had checked into a modest suite under a false name earlier that evening, choosing to observe from the shadows. From his room window, he could see the line of limousines curving around the front, guests stepping out in designer gowns, diamond cuffs flashing like stars. Vincent's speech drifted faintly through the open balcony door, confident, rehearsed, and hollow. At Vale Group, we don't just build hotels. We build legacies. Aaron closed his eyes. Evelyn built that legacy, he whispered. Inside, Vincent was basking in applause, unaware the man who made all of this possible was watching him from above. He spoke about innovation, about values, about family tradition, all while humiliating his own family at the door hours before. The irony burned quietly. Later that night, Aaron slipped downstairs, drawn to the empty corridors after the event had ended. Staff members moved like ghosts, cleaning up the remnants of luxury, half-empty glasses, crushed napkins, the scent of expensive perfume fading into disinfectant. He wandered into the kitchen, where a young woman with tired eyes, Whistler, was wiping down trays. She froze when she saw him. "Sir, this area's closed," she said gently, though her tone lacked the harshness he'd faced earlier. "I'm sorry," Aaron said. "Just curious. Do you always work this late?" She smiled sadly. "When your boss expects perfection, you don't leave until the shine's back." Aaron tilted his head. "Vincent Harrow?" She hesitated, then nodded. "He's demanding, but he wants everything flawless." Aaron studied her. "And how does that make you feel?" "Like I'm part of the decor," she said with a nervous laugh. "Pretty to look at, easy to replace." Her words hit him harder than expected. Evelyn had always fought for staff like Isla, people who made beauty possible but never got to be seen. "You're not replaceable," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "That's kind of you to say, sir, but around here, kindness isn't currency." When she left, Aaron stood alone in the quiet kitchen, the hum of refrigerators blending with his thoughts. He realized this wasn't just about Vincent anymore. It was about what the Meridian had become, a monument to ego rather than empathy. Hours later, he wandered into the ballroom, now empty. The floor gleamed like a mirror, reflecting chandeliers and the ghost of Evelyn's dream. He stared at his reflection, distorted by the polished marble. "Maybe I've stayed invisible too long," he said again, this time not as a whisper, but as a vow. Upstairs, Vincent was still celebrating privately with investors, his laughter echoing down the hall. "You've done it again, Harrow," one of them said. "Another masterpiece." Vincent smiled. "It's all about image, gentlemen. People only believe what they can see." Meanwhile, Aaron walked through the service corridors, the parts of the hotel no guest ever saw. The air smelled of cleaning chemicals, warm bread, and exhaustion. He passed by lockers with family photos taped inside, notes that read "one more shift until payday." His heart tightened. This was the real Meridian, honest, unseen, and human. As dawn neared, Aaron stood once more in the lobby, just as workers began their morning rounds. The chandeliers above sparkled like they had never witnessed ugliness. He watched the manager scold a bellboy for a fingerprint on the glass, Vincent's tone echoing in the young man's sharp reprimand. Aaron sighed. Power had trickled down like poison. He reached into his pocket, pulling out Evelyn's old locket. Inside was a photo of her standing before the first hotel they ever built, a small one, built with warmth and heart. "You tell me to forgive," he murmured. But forgiveness without truth is just silence. For the first time, he felt something that wasn't peace, it was a quiet, determined unrest. He knew that revealing himself wouldn't just expose Vincent, it would expose everything the Meridian had lost. And maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. He turned and walked toward the elevator, his reflection trailing him in the polished steel doors. "Time to see how deep this illusion goes," he said under his breath. Behind him, the staff began preparing for another day, unaware the man who truly owned everything they worked for was standing right beside them. Inside the elevator, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We heard you were spotted at the Meridian. Should we alert the press?" Aaron stared at the screen, then smiled faintly before deleting it. "Not yet," he said. "Not until they've seen who they've become. Do you think people change when they get power, or do they just reveal who they truly are? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and if you're still with me, hit that like button so I know you're ready for what comes next." Morning sunlight broke across the marble floors like fire through glass. The Meridian was alive again, bellboys moving briskly, guests chatting, executives hustling to meetings. Somewhere between all that motion, Aaron Vale walked unseen, carrying the calm of a man who had nothing to prove but everything to observe. Vincent Harrow, on the other hand, moved through the same halls like a storm bottled in a suit. The night's success had inflated his pride, but beneath his polished exterior was irritation he couldn't name. Something about the previous night lingered, the sight of his brother-in-law being escorted out, the uneasy feeling that maybe he'd gone too far. But Vincent had long mastered the art of rationalizing cruelty. Rules are rules, he told himself. Perception is everything. Meanwhile, Aaron had made friends with the people who kept the hotel alive, the invisible ones. Isla greeted him with her usual weary smile when he passed through the staff corridor. "Back again, sir," she teased softly. "Don't tell me you couldn't stay away." Aaron chuckled. "I was just curious how the place breathes when no one's watching." "It sighs," she said. "Sometimes it groans." They shared a quiet laugh. She offered him coffee, and as steam curled from the cup, Aaron studied her tired eyes. "You deserve better, Isla." She shrugged. "We all do. But some people's names open doors. Others just keep cleaning them." Her words stuck to him like truth often does, simple, unpolished, but unignorable. Later that morning, Vincent held a meeting with the executive team. His tone was sharp, his words efficient. "We need to maintain our image. I don't want any irregular guests lingering. Security needs to be tighter." One of the staff hesitated. "Sir, there was a man last night asking about staff schedules. He didn't seem harmful, just curious." Vincent frowned. "Curious is dangerous. Find out who he is. If he's still here, remove him quietly." Word reached Aaron before security could. A young bellboy, out of gratitude for a generous tip, whispered, "They're looking for you, sir." Aaron smiled. "Let them." Instead of hiding, he took a seat in the lobby cafe, a modest corner with the scent of roasted beans and quiet chatter. He ordered black coffee and opened a newspaper. When Vincent passed by moments later, their eyes met briefly. Vincent froze. The recognition hit him like static. "You're still here." Vincent's voice was low but sharp. "You shouldn't be wandering around. This is a private property." Aaron folded the paper calmly. "Private?" His tone was gentle, but the word carried weight. "I thought this place was built for everyone." "Don't play semantics," Vincent snapped. "You're not supposed to be here." Aaron leaned forward slightly, his voice quiet but steady. Vincent, sometimes you protect an image so fiercely, you start destroying the reality beneath it. Vincent's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Aaron said, sipping his coffee, you can't polish pride until it looks like virtue. The silence that followed was heavy. Guests nearby glanced up, sensing tension. Vincent forced a smile, lowering his voice. I'll have security escort you out again if I have to. Aaron nodded calmly. You do what you must. He stood, placed a few bills on the table, and walked out, leaving behind only the faint echo of quiet strength. In the hallway, Vincent's assistant approached. Sir, should I have him removed? Vincent hesitated. Not yet, he said, his voice unsteady. I'll handle it. But deep inside, he didn't know why he hesitated. Perhaps because he felt something he hadn't felt in years, shame. That evening, a meeting between Vincent and investors turned tense. One of the older shareholders asked, who was that man in your lobby earlier? He seemed familiar. Vincent brushed it off. No one important. But the man frowned. He spoke like someone who understood the foundation of this business. Vincent forced a laugh. A nobody with opinions. Inside, his stomach twisted. Aaron spent that night with the staff in the cafeteria, eating a simple meal of soup and bread. Isla laughed when he made a dry joke about the hotel's obsession with gold accents. You don't talk like a guest, she said. You talk like someone who belongs here. He smiled faintly. Maybe I do. Upstairs, Vincent paced his office, replaying every interaction with Aaron in his head. His wife, Clara, entered quietly. You've been restless all day, she said. Something wrong. Vincent hesitated. It's Aaron. He's here. Wandering around like he owns the place. Clara gave him a look that froze him. He does, Vincent. Or have you forgotten who signed the company charter? The words hit him like a blow. He turned away, hiding the flicker of fear behind anger. That was years ago. I've built everything since. Built, she said softly. Or borrowed. When she left, Vincent stood alone, staring out at the city lights. He wanted to call Aaron, to explain himself, to justify, but pride chained his tongue. Downstairs, Aaron sat in silence, watching the staff laugh between shifts. He felt Evelyn's presence in their kindness, in Isla's quiet resilience, in the unseen effort that made beauty possible. As midnight approached, Aaron took a card from his pocket and wrote a single line on it before slipping it into Vincent's office mailbox. Everything you build rests on what you don't see. Vincent found it early the next morning. No signature. Just truth. Do you think silence can speak louder than power? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if this part hit you, drop a like so we can keep going deeper into what happens next. The afternoon sun melted into grey clouds as the first drops of rain kissed the glass facade of the Meridian. Inside, the hum of conversation mixed with the low drone of thunder rolling in the distance. Aaron Vale sat in the lobby cafe, reading an old book while the storm built outside, patient but unstoppable. Vincent Harrow was upstairs, rehearsing a speech for another round of investors arriving that evening. Pride filled his veins like caffeine. He refused to think about the mysterious note now tucked in his drawer, the one that had unsettled him all night. By dusk, the sky cracked open. Rain fell in sheets, pounding against the hotel's windows, and lightning painted the city in brief flashes of white. Power flickered once. Twice. Then, with a deep hum, it died. The chandeliers went dark. A collective gasp rippled through the lobby as the storm swallowed the lights of the city. Generators kicked in seconds later, humming back life into the emergency systems, but the damage was done. Roads were flooded, transport stalled, and the hotel became an island in the downpour. No one was leaving tonight. Guests grumbled. Staff scrambled. And amid the confusion, fate tightened its grip. Vincent descended the grand staircase, irritated, barking orders. Get backup power on the upper floors. Call maintenance. Double-check the generator load. His voice echoed over the storm. Aaron, seated quietly in the corner, watched with calm curiosity. Their eyes met briefly, a flicker of recognition, pride, and something softer underneath. "You again," Vincent muttered as he approached. "Seems I can't get rid of you." "Maybe the rain has other plans," Aaron said, his tone light but deliberate. Vincent frowned. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" "Or maybe," Aaron replied, setting his book aside, "I just don't quit on people so easily." Before Vincent could respond, a staff member interrupted. "Sir, several guests are stranded in the West Wing. Elevators are down." Vincent sighed. "Fine. I'll check it myself." Aaron stood. "I'll help." Vincent scoffed. "I don't need your help." "No," Aaron said, stepping closer, his gaze steady. "You need perspective." The tension between them thickened like the air around a lightning strike. But the storm had trapped them together, and neither could escape. They walked side by side down the dim corridor toward the West Wing, their footsteps echoing on marble. Emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows. Somewhere in the distance, thunder groaned like the earth itself was listening. "Why are you here, Aaron?" Vincent finally asked, unable to hide the question any longer. "Really here?" Aaron looked at him. "Maybe to remind you what this place was supposed to be." "You think I've forgotten?" "I think you've replaced purpose with performance." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Easy to say when you're not the one running this circus." "Running it?" Aaron's voice softened. "Or letting it run you?" Vincent turned away, hiding the sting. "You think you know me?" "I used to," Aaron said simply. "Before you decided reputation mattered more than family." They reached the West Wing. Several guests sat huddled in chairs, candles flickering in their hands. A young couple with a crying child, an elderly woman trying to stay calm, small moments of humanity that didn't fit in Vincent's carefully controlled image. Without hesitation, Aaron knelt beside the child, speaking softly, offering his jacket to keep her warm. Vincent watched, silent. One of the guests whispered, "Thank you, sir." Aaron just smiled. "We're all guests tonight." For the first time, Vincent didn't have a retort. He saw something he hadn't seen in years, leadership that didn't demand attention but drew it naturally. Isla appeared moments later, handing out bottled water. "The storm's worse than expected," she said. "We're stuck for hours, maybe the whole night." Vincent exhaled heavily. "Great. Just what I needed." "Sometimes storms come to make us stop," Aaron said. Isla smiled faintly, catching the subtext. "Or to make us see what we've ignored." Hours passed. Candles replaced chandeliers, and laughter returned slowly among the guests. Someone began playing a soft tune on the lobby piano, the melody mingling with rain against the glass. In that fragile calm, Vincent sat beside Aaron for the first time without pretense. The two men watched lightning fork across the horizon. "You really believe this place used to mean something?" Vincent asked, voice low. "It did," Aaron said. "And it can again." "You talk like it's yours." Aaron met his gaze but said nothing. Silence answered louder than words. Vincent studied him, confusion flickering behind his guarded stare. "You're a strange man," he said finally. "You show up out of nowhere, say things that cut deep, and act like you know the soul of this hotel better than I do." Aaron smiled faintly. "Maybe that's because I remember when it had one." Lightning flashed again, illuminating both men, one weary but wise, the other proud yet secretly lost. The sound of thunder filled the space between them, but neither spoke. For the first time, silence didn't feel like hostility. It felt like the beginning of truth. Later that night, as the storm eased, Vincent found himself replaying Aaron's words. They weren't attacks, they were reflections. And what scared him most was that he saw himself in them. When he glanced across the lounge again, Aaron was gone. Only the empty cup of coffee remained, steam fading slowly in the candlelight. Have you ever been stuck in a storm? Oh, not the kind outside, but the kind inside you that forces you to face the truth. Tell me in the comments if you've ever had to face yourself like Vincent, and leave a like if you're ready for the next twist. The storm broke at dawn, leaving behind streets washed clean and a sky the color of forgiveness. Inside the Meridian, the morning felt strangely still. The chandeliers flickered back to life, and guests began to leave, shaking hands with staff who had worked through the night. But for Aaron Vale, the quiet after the storm wasn't peace, it was memory stirring, old wounds whispering through the walls. He found himself drawn to the rooftop garden, a place Evelyn once adored. She had designed it years ago, insisting that every empire needs a heartbeat. When he stepped out into the soft morning light, it was like stepping into her echo. Flowers still bloomed despite neglect, their colors muted by time, and the faint scent of lavender, her favorite, still lingered in the air. Aaron knelt beside the old stone bench where she used to read and brushed away fallen petals. You wouldn't recognize him anymore, he murmured. The man who thought control could replace compassion. Behind him, footsteps approached. You come up here often. Isla's voice, gentle as always. She stood holding 2 cups of coffee, her uniform wrinkled from the long night. I didn't think anyone remembered this place, she said, handing him one. Mr. Harrow said it's not profitable to maintain. It's been off the renovation list for years. Aaron sighed, eyes heavy with memory. My wife designed this garden, he said quietly. Isla blinked. Your wife? Then you must have known Mr. Harrow's sister. Aaron nodded slowly. Evelyn was the reason all this began. She believed hotels should feel like home, not museums for the rich. Isla smiled softly. That explains you. Me. You care about the people most of us walk past. Her words landed gently but deeply. He smiled, warmed by her sincerity. Maybe that's the only way to remember her right. As they talked, Vincent was downstairs reviewing the storm's financial damages, irritated by every expense report. Power loss, spoiled food, extra hours, do they think money grows on trees, he muttered. His assistant hesitated. Sir, people said you handled things well. Guests were impressed with how the staff pulled together. Vincent stopped mid-sentence. Praise wasn't what he expected. It wasn't even his doing. Who coordinated them? A guest, sir, she said. An older man in the lobby. The staff said he kept everyone calm. Vincent froze. Aaron. That name lingered in his mind like a riddle. Find him, Vincent ordered. Now. Meanwhile, Aaron and Isla stood by the garden's edge, the city sprawled beneath them. Do you ever feel, Isla asked quietly, like you're standing in something beautiful that no one else can see? Aaron smiled. Every day. They stood in companionable silence until footsteps echoed behind them. Vincent. His expression was unreadable, caught somewhere between suspicion and disbelief. So this is where you've been hiding? Aaron turned. Not hiding. Remembering. Vincent's eyes darted around the space. I forgot this place even existed. That's because you've been looking down too long, Aaron said gently. You stopped looking up. Vincent folded his arms. And what's that supposed to mean? It means you've built everything so tall that you can't see where it started. You think I'm blind? No, Aaron said softly. Just lost. Vincent's breath hitched at the quiet conviction in Aaron's tone. You sound like her, he said finally. Aaron's eyes softened. She saw something in you. So do I. But the man she believed in is buried under too much pride. The air between them trembled with old grief and unspoken truths. Vincent looked away. You don't know what it's like, always being compared, always being the one who has to prove himself. Aaron stepped closer. Vincent, no one asked you to prove anything. You just started fighting shadows that weren't chasing you. The words hit hard. Vincent turned abruptly and walked away, unable to bear the reflection. Later that evening, Aaron found himself wandering into Evelyn's old design office, now converted into a storage room. Dust coated her drawings, her handwriting barely visible on blueprints labeled Project Meridian, Phase 1. He ran his hand over them, tracing her dreams. "You built this with love," he whispered, "and they turned it into power." He tucked one rolled blueprint under his arm and walked out. He knew what he had to do. Meanwhile, Vincent sat in his penthouse office, staring at an old family photo, himself, Evelyn, and Aaron, taken before her illness. She was laughing, her head on Aaron's shoulder. He remembered resenting that moment back then. "You were always her world," he whispered bitterly. "And I was just the shadow beside her." His wife, Clara, entered quietly. "Vincent," she said softly, "he's not your enemy." Vincent looked up, guilt flickering. "Then why does he make me feel small?" "Because he doesn't try to," she replied. "That's what makes you see yourself." She left him with that truth. That night, Aaron returned to his suite, unrolling Evelyn's blueprint on the desk. The design was beautiful, circles of symmetry and warmth, the garden drawn like a living heart at the center. But in one corner, her handwriting read, "Legacy is love remembered." He smiled faintly. "Then it's time they remember." Downstairs, Vincent received an email from corporate. An unannounced inspection was scheduled for the next day by the board. He scowled. "Perfect timing," he muttered. He didn't yet realize that Aaron himself had arranged it. In the silence of the night, thunder no longer rumbled, but something deeper stirred, the storm between brothers that had never truly passed. Aaron stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "they'll see what legacy really means." Have you ever felt invisible next to someone you loved, like your worth was being measured against their shadow? Tell me in the comments, and if this part touched you, hit that like button. Morning came with soft gold spilling through the city skyline. The meridian stood gleaming as if the storm had never happened, but inside, something subtle had shifted. For the first time in years, staff greeted the day with laughter instead of nerves. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe hope. Maybe both. Aaron Vale watched from the balcony above the lobby as Isla and the morning crew prepared breakfast service. The aroma of coffee and pastries filled the air, and the sound of clinking dishes echoed like a heartbeat returning. Vincent Harrow entered moments later, still in his crisp suit but quieter today, almost uneasy. His eyes found Aaron across the mezzanine. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The board inspection was scheduled for noon, and tension hummed under every movement. At breakfast, Clara approached Aaron's table. "He knows you arranged the inspection," she said softly, sitting down without asking. "He thinks it's punishment." Aaron looked at her, calm. "It's not punishment. It's perspective." Clara's voice trembled slightly. "You could destroy him." "I don't want to destroy him," Aaron said, his gaze steady. "I want to wake him up." She studied him for a moment, recognizing sincerity in his tired eyes. "You still believe he can change?" "I have to," Aaron said quietly. Evelyn did. Upstairs, Vincent paced his office. Every word from the night before played in his head, Evelyn's voice in his memory, Aaron's quiet challenge, Clara's soft warning. He poured himself a glass of scotch even though it was still morning, the burn helping him focus. Legacy is love remembered. He didn't understand it fully yet, but it haunted him. When the board arrived, led by the composed but sharp-eyed Mr. Dwyer, Vincent forced his best smile. "Welcome back to the Meridian," he said. But Dwyer didn't smile. "Mr. Harrow, we've heard interesting things about last night. It seems your staff handled the crisis impressively, though some credit goes to a guest who helped coordinate." Vincent's chest tightened. "A guest?" "Yes," Dwyer replied, checking his notes. "A Mr. Vale." The name landed like thunder. Vincent's mask cracked. "Aaron Vale." Dwyer nodded. Apparently he was the reason guests remained calm. The board appreciates that kind of leadership. The older man's gaze narrowed. especially from someone we didn't know was still involved in Meridian operations. Vincent swallowed hard. Still involved? Dwyer raised a brow. He never sold his shares, Mr. Harrow. Technically, he's still the majority owner. The room fell silent. The truth hit Vincent like a physical blow. He stumbled back into his chair, trying to absorb what he'd just heard. Aaron Vale, his brother-in-law, the man he'd dismissed, the one he'd ordered security to throw out, still owned the empire he'd spent years claiming as his. The humiliation burned deep, but deeper still was realization. He had built a kingdom on borrowed ground. After the meeting, Vincent walked through the hallways like a man in a dream. Every staff member he passed seemed suddenly more human, more real. He saw them, not as tools or background figures, but as the living pillars holding up what he'd pretended to control. When he reached the rooftop garden, Aaron was waiting, as if he knew this moment would come. "So," Aaron said gently, "you know." Vincent nodded, his voice hollow. "You own it. You always did." "Ownership is just paper," Aaron said. "Legacy is how people remember us." Vincent laughed bitterly. "Legacy? People remember me as the arrogant CEO who didn't even know who signed his paycheck." "Then change it," Aaron said simply. "Evelyn built this place to heal. Maybe it's time you let it heal you." Vincent's eyes flashed with something raw, anger, shame, maybe grief. "You think it's that easy?" Aaron stepped closer. "No. But it's possible." The two men stood inches apart, the silence between them thick with history. Rain from the night before still glistened on the leaves. "You should have told me," Vincent whispered. "You wouldn't have listened," Aaron said softly. "You were too busy trying to outrun your own reflection." Isla arrived then, hesitant but holding a folder. "Mr. Vale," she said, "I found these in storage, Evelyn's design notes. They mentioned something about you both." She handed them to Aaron, then slipped away quietly. Vincent reached out, trembling, and opened the folder. Inside were Evelyn's handwritten pages, letters she'd written before she passed. He read one aloud, voice cracking, "Vincent, if you're reading this, it means Aaron kept his promise to protect you, even from yourself. Don't forget that love isn't control. It's trust. Build what we dreamed, not what you fear." Vincent couldn't finish. His hand covered his mouth as his shoulders shook. Aaron looked away, giving him privacy in his pain. For years, Vincent had avoided tears, seeing them as weakness. Now they came like rain, washing years of guilt from his chest. "She believed in me," Vincent whispered. "Even after all I did." "That's what love does," Aaron said gently. "It remembers the best of us." Hours later, they sat together under the garden's awning, the city humming quietly below. For the first time, they spoke like brothers, not adversaries. Vincent confessed how envy had poisoned him, how every success Aaron had made him feel smaller. Aaron admitted how his silence, meant to keep peace, only allowed resentment to grow. They laughed softly at their shared foolishness, two men haunted by the same woman who had loved them both differently but deeply. "Maybe this place can still be what she wanted," Vincent said at last. "If we build it together." Aaron smiled faintly. "Then let's start today." When the staff finished their shifts that evening, Aaron and Vincent joined them in the cafeteria for dinner. The sight left everyone stunned, the CEO and a mysterious guest eating soup and bread with janitors and receptionists. Aaron raised his cup in a quiet toast. "To the ones who make this place alive," he said. "And to second chances." Vincent hesitated, then lifted his glass, echoing softly, "To second chances." The applause that followed was small, but it filled the room with warmth stronger than any profit margin. Later that night, Clara found Vincent standing by the window again. "You look different," she said. "Lighter." He smiled. "Maybe I finally stopped trying to be someone I'm not." She took his hand. "And who are you now?" He looked out over the glowing city. Someone Evelyn would have been proud of. The next morning dawned bright and deceptive, a calm sky that gave no hint of what was coming. The meridian glowed in the sunlight, and for a moment it felt like redemption had truly taken root. Vincent Harrow arrived early, sleeves rolled, speaking kindly to staff, even smiling once or twice. Aaron Vale watched from the upper balcony, pride swelling quietly in his chest. Maybe, finally, the cycle was breaking. But every story of healing has a fracture waiting to be tested. It started small, an email leaked to the press. A headline flashing across news screens in the lobby, anonymous source claims Meridian CEO lied about ownership. The story spread like wildfire. Guests whispered. Investors called. Within an hour, reporters were outside the hotel, cameras aimed like rifles. Vincent froze when his assistant burst in holding her phone. "Sir, they're saying the company was stolen from Evelyn Vale's estate, that you've been running it under false pretenses." His stomach dropped. "That's not true," he said, but his voice shook. She hesitated. "They have documents, ones that make it look like you forced Aaron out years ago." Vincent paled. "What?" He rushed to his office computer, scrolling through the attached files. There they were, contracts, emails, signatures. All twisted out of context, all suggesting betrayal. He knew exactly what this meant. "Someone's framing us," he whispered. "But who?" Downstairs, Aaron was already surrounded by cameras when he stepped out of the elevator. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Vale, is it true you secretly owned the Meridian all these years? Did your brother-in-law steal your wife's legacy?" He didn't answer. He only frowned, realizing instantly what had happened. Someone had discovered his reactivation of the inspection and twisted it into a scandal. By noon, social media was ablaze. Investors threatened to pull out. Clara stood in Vincent's office as he slammed his fist on the desk. "It's him," Vincent hissed. "It has to be him. He never forgave me." "Aaron." Clara's voice trembled. "Vincent, no, he wouldn't. He had motive, access, everything." Vincent snapped, pacing. "He set me up with that inspection, and now this." Clara tried to speak, but he was beyond reason. Rage and fear clouded his judgment, just as it had years ago. If he wanted to humiliate me, congratulations, he's done it. He stormed out. In the lobby, Aaron stood by the window, his phone buzzing with calls he ignored. When he turned, Vincent was there, eyes blazing. "You did this," Vincent spat. "You couldn't stand me getting the credit, could you? You needed to be the savior." Aaron's voice stayed calm. "Vincent, stop. I didn't leak anything. Don't lie to me." Vincent barked, his voice echoing through the atrium. Guests turned. Staff froze. Aaron's jaw tightened. "You think I'd destroy the one thing she built? You already did." Vincent's words were venom. "You took her love, you took her name, and now you're taking what I built from her memory." The silence that followed cut deep. Aaron's expression hardened with quiet pain. "You built it on her ashes," he said softly. "And now you're burning what's left." The weight of that sentence broke something in Vincent. He lunged forward, shoving Aaron back. Security rushed in, but Aaron raised a hand, stopping them. "Let him." Vincent's breathing was ragged. "You don't belong here," he said hoarsely. "Not anymore." Aaron stared at him, eyes full of exhausted sadness. "Maybe you're right." He straightened his coat, nodded to Isla, who watched in shock, and walked out of the lobby without another word. Hours passed. Reporters hounded the doors. Clara tried to reach her husband, but Vincent locked himself in his office, staring blankly at the storm of notifications on his phone. For the first time, the noise he'd always chased felt unbearable. He saw himself on the screens, angry, desperate, exposed, and hated the man looking back. Downstairs, the staff whispered in corners, unsure whom to believe. Isla sat quietly in the cafe, her hands trembling. "He didn't do it," she whispered to herself. She knew Aaron's integrity, could feel it. She remembered his kindness, his humility. He wouldn't. He couldn't. That evening, Vincent finally emerged, his face pale. He found Isla cleaning tables. "Where is he?" he asked softly. "Gone," she said, not looking up. "He left right after you told him he didn't belong." "Did he say where he was going?" "No. But he left this." She handed him an envelope. Vincent hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single note in Aaron's handwriting. "Some truths only surface when everything else drowns. When you're ready to see, look where it began." Vincent's throat tightened. He knew exactly where that was. Night fell heavy and thick. The rooftop garden waited under starlight, quiet and still. Vincent climbed the stairs alone. When he reached the top, he found the place changed, lanterns hung softly, and at the center, Evelyn's blueprint was pinned to the old stone bench, fluttering in the wind. Next to it sat a USB drive. He plugged it into his tablet with trembling hands. A video began to play. Evelyn's voice filled the air, recorded years ago. "If you're watching this, it means you've both forgotten why we started. This hotel was meant to hold people, not pride. Love isn't power, Vincent, it's the courage to be small when the world demands you be big." Tears fell freely. The recording faded, replaced by footage Aaron had filmed the night before of the staff, laughing and working through the storm, helping guests without orders. His voice narrated softly, "This is the Meridian. This is what she built. Not marble. Not money. People." Vincent dropped to his knees, weeping into his hands. The truth finally cracked his pride open. He had driven away the one man who'd only ever tried to save him. Below, Clara found him hours later, still on the floor, holding Evelyn's note. He looked up, broken. "I ruined everything." She knelt beside him. "Then fix it." The next morning, Vincent called a press conference. Cameras lined the lobby, waiting for blood. Instead, they got humility. He stood before them, eyes tired but clear. "I've made mistakes," he said. "The Meridian isn't mine alone. It belongs to the vision Evelyn Vale created, and to the man who never stopped protecting it, even from me. Aaron Vale is the rightful owner. And more than that, he's my brother." Gasps rippled through the room. Somewhere in the back, Isla smiled faintly. Vincent continued, voice steady. "I lost sight of love chasing validation. But today, I'd rather be a man of truth than a king of lies." The press erupted in questions, but he walked away, leaving them to argue over what redemption looked like. As he stepped outside into the morning light, he whispered, "Now it's his turn." The city woke to headlines of confession and redemption. Meridian CEO admits truth, company belongs to late founder's husband. For the first time, Vincent Harrow's name wasn't followed by scandal but by something quieter, respect. Yet inside him, peace had not arrived. It would not until he faced the man he had broken. Aaron Vale had left the city the night before, traveling upstate to a small cottage Evelyn once loved, a retreat tucked behind the trees, where wild lavender grew and the air smelled like memory. He hadn't looked back once. The world could have its noise, he'd had enough of it. But as he sat on the porch the next morning, sipping coffee and staring at the lake, the quiet didn't soothe him. It echoed. Every word Vincent had shouted still rang in his chest. "You don't belong here." He thought he'd buried his grief with Evelyn, but her name still lived in every corner of his heart, and now so did disappointment. He hadn't wanted revenge, only peace. And peace, it seemed, had left with her. Back in the city, Vincent sat in his office for the last time. The Meridian board had accepted his resignation and reinstated Aaron as the legal owner. He'd expected relief, maybe even freedom, but all he felt was emptiness. The view from his window looked different now, not majestic, but hollow. "He won't come back," Clara said softly, stepping inside. "He will," Vincent said quietly. "He has to. And if he doesn't, then I'll go to him." He turned, determination lighting his eyes. "He deserves to hear it from me." That afternoon, he drove for hours, leaving behind the skyscrapers that had once defined him. As the roads narrowed into forest paths, his reflection in the rearview mirror shifted from CEO to something simpler, a man stripped of pretense, seeking forgiveness not for reputation but for soul. The rain started halfway there, soft at first, then heavy, blurring the world into watercolor. By the time he reached the cabin, his suit was soaked through, but he didn't care. He stepped out and saw Aaron sitting on the porch, motionless, eyes on the lake. "You're late," Aaron said without turning. Vincent froze, startled by the calm in his tone. "You knew I'd come." Aaron nodded. Evelyn used to say guilt always travels faster than grace, but grace always arrives. Vincent exhaled, rain dripping from his hair. "You were right," he said simply. "About everything." "That's not what I wanted," Aaron replied. "I wanted you to see." "I didn't want to," Vincent admitted. "It hurt too much to see what I became." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I was jealous, Aaron. You had everything, her love, her peace, her purpose, and I kept chasing your shadow trying to prove I wasn't small." Aaron finally looked at him, eyes full of sadness but not anger. "You weren't small, Vincent. You just forgot that love doesn't measure worth." The rain slowed, leaving only soft drips on the leaves around them. Vincent sank to the porch steps, head bowed. "I told the world the truth," he said. "The Meridian's yours again." "Ours," Aaron corrected quietly. "Evelyn built it for both of us." Vincent shook his head. "I don't deserve that." "No one deserves grace," Aaron said. "That's what makes it grace." The silence between them stretched, long, heavy, cleansing. Vincent's hands trembled. "I don't know how to make it right." Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that felt like both forgiveness and memory. "Start by living better than your mistakes." Vincent swallowed hard. "Will you come back?" Aaron hesitated. "Maybe. But not as your rival. Only as your brother." The word brother cracked something open inside Vincent. He hadn't heard it spoken without bitterness in years. "Then that's enough," he whispered. They sat in silence for a long time, two men bound by loss but freed by truth. The rain stopped, and sunlight spilled through the clouds, touching the lake with gold. It felt like Evelyn herself was there, unseen, but everywhere. Later, as they walked inside, Vincent saw the old photographs on the wall, Evelyn smiling between them, a hand on each of their shoulders. He traced the frame, his voice soft. "She'd be happy, wouldn't she?" Aaron smiled faintly. "She already is." They brewed tea, simple and grounding, the kind Evelyn used to make on quiet evenings. No deals, no papers, no pretense, just warmth and the hum of reconciliation. Vincent looked up at him. "When I first met you, I thought you were a threat. Now I see you're the anchor I never had." Aaron chuckled lightly. "That's because you were too busy steering storms." "And you?" Vincent asked. "What will you do now?" "Rebuild," Aaron said. "Not the hotel. The people. The heart of it. I'll make the Meridian what it was meant to be, a place where worth isn't worn, it's felt." "You'll need help," Vincent said. Aaron looked at him. "Then stay." Vincent blinked. "After everything?" Evelyn believed in second chances, Aaron said simply. "I learned to do the same." Vincent smiled for the first time in what felt like years, small, genuine, almost childlike. "Then let's rebuild it. Not as owner and CEO, but as brothers." "As family," Aaron agreed. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of lavender from the garden below. Vincent looked out the window. "It smells like her," he whispered. Aaron nodded. "She never really left." That night, they sat by the fire, telling stories about her, the way she laughed, how she hated board meetings but loved designing spaces for joy. Every story softened the edges between them until there was no distance left, only understanding. Vincent stared into the flames. "You know," he said, voice quiet. I used to think strength meant never breaking. Aaron shook his head. Strength is what happens after you break. And in that moment, the world outside seemed to pause, the lake still, the fire steady, two men learning that love isn't about winning or owning, but remembering who we are when everything else falls away. The days that followed were quiet but full, like the stillness after a storm when the world starts to heal. The Meridian reopened a week later, not with the usual fanfare or media circus, but with something far more powerful: humility. Gone were the extravagant red carpets and overpolished speeches. Instead, the grand lobby was filled with music from a small live band, laughter from staff and guests mingling freely, and the soft hum of community returning to life. The gold letters above the entrance now read, "The Meridian, a home built on grace." Aaron and Vincent stood side by side just inside the doors as guests entered. For the first time, Vincent wasn't wearing his armor of arrogance. His posture was relaxed, his voice warm as he greeted people by name. "Welcome back," he said with genuine gratitude. Aaron smiled beside him, watching, proud but quiet. It was exactly what Evelyn would have wanted, her two worlds, finally one. Upstairs in the newly restored rooftop garden, Isla directed a small team of gardeners, her hands covered in soil, her eyes full of joy. The garden had become the centerpiece again, alive with color and memory. When Aaron joined her, she grinned. "You know," she said, brushing dirt from her palms, "it's strange seeing the boss digging beside us." Aaron chuckled. "If you ever see me not doing that, remind me where I started." Vincent appeared moments later, carrying a tray of tea. "I thought you two might need this." Isla laughed. "Mr. Harrow bringing tea? I've seen everything now." "Vincent," he corrected with a shy smile. "Just Vincent." The three of them stood together for a moment, overlooking the city. "Do you think she'd approve?" Vincent asked softly. Aaron looked out at the skyline. "She'd be proud. Not of what we built, but of who we became." The wind carried the faint scent of lavender, the same fragrance that always signaled Evelyn's presence. They all felt it. None spoke of it. But all knew. Later that evening, a small ceremony took place in the main hall, no cameras, no press. Just family, staff, and a few long-time guests. Aaron stood at the podium, his voice calm but rich with emotion. This place was never meant to be about ownership or power. It was meant to be about belonging. My wife, Evelyn Vale, dreamed of creating a space where people didn't have to pretend to be more than they are. Today, we dedicate the Meridian, not to her loss, but to her love. He looked toward Vincent, who nodded in silent gratitude. Aaron continued, "And to everyone here, the unseen, the unappreciated, you are the reason this place breathes." He raised a glass. "To new beginnings." The room echoed, "To new beginnings." When the applause settled, Vincent stepped forward. His voice trembled slightly. "I spent years trying to prove I was worthy of this place, only to realize it was never about worth, it was about heart. Aaron showed me that. And Evelyn, she taught me that sometimes love saves you long after the person is gone." His eyes glistened. "I can't change what I was. But I can be better. Starting now." A standing ovation followed, not out of pity, but respect. For honesty. For growth. For the rare courage it takes to be human again. As the evening ended, guests trickled out into the cool night. Aaron and Vincent remained by the grand entrance, watching the lights flicker across the city. "She'd be laughing right now," Vincent said softly. "At us. Crying in suits, running a hotel like a family business." Aaron chuckled. "She always said it was supposed to feel like home." "Home," Vincent repeated quietly, tasting the word like it was new. "I'd forgotten what that felt like." "Then remember," Aaron said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "It's here. In the people. In us." Isla approached with 2 envelopes. "These came for you both," she said. Each letter bore the same handwriting, Evelyn's, from old archives she'd found while renovating. Aaron opened his first. It read, "If love is real, it doesn't end, it transforms." Vincent opened his and smiled through tears. You don't have to win to be worthy, Vin. Just be kind. Neither spoke, but both felt the same warmth bloom in their chest, the peace of being seen by someone who'd loved them even beyond time. The next morning, sunlight poured through the hotel windows like blessing. Guests smiled at one another, staff moved with ease, and laughter echoed from places that had once only heard orders. The Meridian was alive again, not perfect, not polished, but real. Vincent walked into the garden, finding Aaron quietly watering the plants. "You ever think she's still here?" Vincent asked. Aaron smiled faintly. "Every day. She's in every act of kindness, every moment of grace." Vincent nodded. "Then I'll keep her alive that way." Aaron handed him the watering can. "Start with this." They laughed, and for the first time in years, it wasn't forced, it was free. As the sun climbed higher, Vincent looked out at the city. "So what now?" Aaron shrugged. "Now we live. We love. We build quietly. Together. Always." The camera of the world, if it were watching, would have seen two men, once divided by pride, now united by purpose, standing amid a garden reborn. The lavender swayed gently in the breeze, carrying Evelyn's memory into the open air, her legacy fulfilled not through marble or money, but through mended hearts. Aaron looked toward the horizon and whispered, "We're home, Evelyn." And somewhere in that golden morning light, the world felt just a little softer. He always finds its way home.